In December 1944, the forests of the Ardennes, long considered quiet and secondary,
The plan relied on speed, surprise, and winter weather to push through terrain the Allies believed unsuitable for large-scale attacks. Heavy snow and cloud cover grounded Allied aircraft, blinding reconnaissance and isolating frontline units.
At the center of this sudden advance stood Bastogne, a small Belgian town whose road network controlled movement across the region. Whoever held Bastogne could move forces in every direction, making it a critical objective for both sides.
Units of the 101st Airborne Division were rushed into the town, many without winter coats or adequate supplies.
They were ordered to hold the position at all costs, despite limited preparation and uncertain support. The frozen ground allowed only shallow defensive positions, leaving troops dangerously exposed. German forces moved quickly to surround Bastogne, sealing off roads and isolating the defenders.
Within days, Bastogne was completely cut off from the rest of the Allied front.
German artillery began a constant bombardment intended to weaken resistance and break morale.
The defenders endured the shelling with little shelter, knowing reinforcements were days away.
Casualties increased rapidly as medical teams struggled with shortages of bandages, plasma, and medicine.
Every resource had to be rationed carefully, including life-saving equipment.
The weather continued to favor the attackers by preventing Allied aircraft from reaching the town.
Ammunition levels dropped steadily, becoming one of the most serious threats to the defense.
Fire discipline replaced volume, as every bullet was saved for the most critical moments.
Repeated armored probes tested the perimeter but failed to break through.
Night brought no relief, as attacks and shelling continued around the clock. Basic survival tasks became exhausting struggles against cold and hunger. Cold injuries quietly reduced combat strength as effectively as enemy fire.
German commanders expected the isolated defenders to collapse under pressure.
Improvised fortifications helped compensate for the lack of heavy weapons.
The siege dragged on, each day tightening the strain on both sides.
By late December, Bastogne had become a test of endurance, where holding ground mattered more than advancing.
As the siege continued, each morning revealed fewer supplies and fewer options for the encircled defenders.
Units began redistributing ammunition, shifting rounds to the most threatened sectors.
German commanders increased bombardment, hoping to exhaust resistance before launching another assault.
The shallow defenses offered little protection, forcing constant repairs under fire. Every casualty further strained the limited medical resources inside the town.
Defensive planning focused on holding key road approaches with minimal manpower.
Another coordinated attack was prepared, aimed at overwhelming a narrow section of the perimeter.
The defenders waited in silence, conserving strength and ammunition. The assault moved forward under covering fire, pressing toward the town.
Carefully timed fire halted the advance before it could reach the defensive line.
Once again, the attack failed to break the encirclement.
Each failed attempt increased German losses while buying time for the defenders.
captured equipment and ammunition briefly eased such shortages.
Gradually, the weather shifted, opening a narrow window of opportunity.
For the first time in days, aircraft were able to reach the skies over Bastogne.
Aerial resupply drops brought ammunition, food, and medical supplies.
The drops restored a measure of fighting capability and morale.
Medical care improved immediately, saving lives that would otherwise have been lost.
German forces recognized that time was now working against them.
With supplies restored, defenses were strengthened across the perimeter.
Shelling continued, but momentum was slipping away. The defenders now focused on holding until relief could arrive.
Beyond the perimeter, Allied armored units were advancing through the Ardennes.
German commanders began reconsidering the cost of continued attacks.
Relief was drawing closer, though the final outcome remained uncertain.
Outside the encirclement, Allied forces pushed forward through the same harsh terrain, determined to reach the trapped town.
Progress was slow, as narrow roads and German resistance delayed the advance.
German units attempted to block the relief effort with ambushes and roadblocks.
Each obstacle slowed the advance, but momentum gradually built.
Inside the town, defenders used the resupply to prepare for further attacks.
German commanders launched smaller probes, searching for weaknesses.
Improved supply allowed disciplined defense, rather than desperate resistance.
These limited attacks failed to gain ground and consumed valuable time.
The defensive ring remained unbroken as days passed.
German forces began shifting to defensive postures of their own. With ammunition restored, American guns responded more effectively.
Counterfire disrupted German movements around the town.
Confidence slowly returned as the pressure eased.
Relief forces pushed steadily closer despite continued resistance.
German units were increasingly forced to pull back.
Firepower now favored the advancing Allies.
The encirclement around Bastogne began to loosen.
The defenders prepared for contact with friendly forces.
The soundless approach of tanks signaled the end of isolation.
Relief finally reached the town, breaking the siege.
Exhaustion replaced tension as survival gave way to recovery.
Germany's offensive lost momentum and began to collapse. The immediate danger passed, but the cost remained visible everywhere.
Medical teams could finally work without constant interruption.
Bastogne stood intact, having fulfilled its strategic role.
The town bore the scars of constant shelling, with civilian structures turned into defensive strongpoints.
Every street reflected the intensity of the fighting that had been taken place.
The defenders remained alert, aware that the wider battle was not yet over.
For the civilian population, survival had depended on staying hidden during the siege.
Clearing supply routes became a priority as the front stabilized.
Regular supply lines were restored, ending the period of isolation.
Logistics replaced desperation as the immediate crisis passed.
The failed offensive left many German units shattered and retreating.
The surrounding countryside showed the scale of the engagement.
With the siege broken, Bastogne shifted from defense to support of the broader advance.
The Battle of the Bulge began to turn decisively against Germany.
Fuel shortages and losses forced a rapid withdrawal.
The crossroads that had drawn the battle now remained firmly in Allied hands.
The change in weather symbolized a shift in the campaign.
The cost of holding Bastogne was measured in lives, as well as endurance.
For those who had held the line, recovery would take time.
The defense of the town had delayed the German advance at a critical moment.
That delay helped seal the failure of Germany's final offensive.
From this point forward, the initiative returned permanently to the Allies.
The fighting moved on, leaving Bastogne behind as a testament to resistance.
The men who defended it returned to the wider war.
What had once been a quiet junction became one of the most important points of the campaign.
Bastogne proved that determination could outweigh isolation and shortage.
The stand at Bastogne altered the course of the Battle of the Bulge and helped bring the war in Europe closer to its end.